morning all of you. We will continue with the history chapter, Rise of Nationalism in Europe, and we will start from the Unification of Italy today. Page number 20 in your books. Unification of Italy. Yesterday we did the Unification of Germany. Okay, who was the main person who led the Unification of Germany? Who is said to be the architect of the Unification of Germany? Okay, Otto von Bismarck. Which year did was Germany unified? Which year was Germany unified? Okay, 1871. Which state led the process of unification in Germany? Russia. Alright. Who was made the emperor of the unified German Empire? Okay, Caesarian one. Right? So, let's move on with Italy. Now, just like Germany, Italy also had a long history of being politically divided into smaller parts. Alright. And now Italians, they were also scattered over many dynasties. Different rulers ruled over different parts. And so, if we take during the middle of the 19th century, Italy was divided at that time into 7 states, and out of these 7, only one was ruled by an Italian prince. The name of that particular state was Sardinia Piedmont. So only Sardinia Piedmont was ruled by an Italian prince. Then the rest of the part, the north were under the Austrian Habsburgs. Center was ruled by Pope, and the southern regions, they were under the domination of the Bourbon kings of Spain. So 7 states at the beginning of, during the middle of the 19th century, and during this time even the Italian language, that has not even developed properly and got one common form, because in different parts of the country different dialects were used. Same language but different dialects, not one common form was achieved till now. Now we have already studied about Mazzini. Yes, who was he? Who was Mazzini? Yes? Yes, beta. Who was Mazzini? Which country he belonged to? Italy. He was an Italian. So he was an Italian revolutionary. Okay, Italian revolutionary. And so during the 1830s, Mazzini, he tried to put together a coherent, means a logical program, a program which can bring together Italy into one unified republic. And he also formed the secret society, Young Italy, so that he can go about doing this. Dissemination means to spread widely. He wanted the unification of Italy, and now he alone cannot do it. All few educated people, they together cannot do it. Now that message, this message of unification had to reach to the masses also, and so he put forward a proper logical program so that he can achieve his goals. And what was his goal? Unification of Italy. Okay, now 2 uprisings had been held in 1831 and 1848, but both met with failure. And so now the responsibility, it fell, mantle means responsibility, it fell on Sardinia Piedmont under the ruler King Victor Emmanuel II. Alright, so now the responsibility was on him to unify the Italian states. And now, like yesterday we did that, during this time nationalism, liberal nationalism, now it was also used, it changed its meaning. Alright, and now during this time it was also used by the conservatives also, so that they can increase their state power and they can spread their dominance over the rest of Europe also. In the same way, Germany also came to be unified, because they thought that okay, one unified country, obviously they will have more power, they can exert more power. And so the same thing happened with Italy also. And now in the eyes of the ruling elites of this country, of this region, now the thought of having a unified Italy, now it looked to them that now it was possible to have better, more economic development also, and if they are unified, then they can exert their dominance or influence over other parts also. So Italy also came to be unified in the same manner, and here also the chief minister, he was the main architect. So Chief Minister Cavour, he led the movement to unify the regions of Italy. And now this Cavour, he was neither a revolutionary. So this person who led this process of unifying Italy, he was neither a revolutionary, neither a democrat. He did not even stand for democratic principles, but like other members of the elite, the ruling elites of the region. And if you remember, we studied that the main dominant group of Europe at that time was landed aristocracy. Remember that? Okay. And so he also belonged to that elite group, and that is why he spoke French better than he spoke Italian. So though he was an Italian, but still, because we studied when we did that the people of this dominant landed aristocracy, they spoke French for diplomatic purposes. So that is why he spoke French better than he spoke his own language. And so with tactful diplomatic alliance he had with France, so Sardinia Piedmont, it succeeded in defeating the Austrian forces first in 1859. Now, so the regular troops, obviously the troops of the king, they helped. But apart from them, there were also a large number of volunteers. Armed volunteers means people came in and they volunteered themselves to fight for the unification of the country. So all these people came under these armed volunteers came under the leadership of Garibaldi, Giuseppe Garibaldi. Now Garibaldi is also one important figure when it comes to the unification of Italy. Okay, so who was Garibaldi? He was a general. All right, so he was an Italian general and also a politician. So he was both, and so many people, many volunteers joined under the leadership of Giuseppe Garibaldi. And now in 1860, these people, they marched into the South Italy and in the kingdom of the two Sicilies, and they were able to win the support of the local people also, the local peasants, farmers. They also got the support of them. And but what happened? These people, we are talking about the peasants. Now these people, illiteracy rates were very high in these people. They were peasants living in countryside, so obviously many people, they were not literate, they could not read and write, and so they were basically unaware what this liberalism was and what this nationalism was. They were not aware. The armed forces, the troops of the king, they went there, they talked to the people that you please come along with us, we will fight for our country. And so they came, they fought, but they did not know what was simply going on. And see the peasant masses, those who supported Garibaldi in South Italy, when they talked about La Italia, they did not know that they were talking about the Italy or unification of the country. They thought that it was Victor Emmanuel's wife they were fighting for. So they were so unaware that what was going on. Illiterate people, so they did not know. They thought it was Victor Emmanuel's wife. La Italia was Victor Emmanuel's wife. They did not even ever heard of what Italia was or the kingdom of United Italy was. Okay. And so in 1861, King Victor Emmanuel II, he was proclaimed as the King of United Italy. So that was the unification of Italy. Let's move on with the unification of Britain. Now, unification of Britain is different. How Great Britain came to be unified is much different from the unification of Germany and Italy. So quite different, and some scholars, they say that model of how a nation state should be, the model is Great Britain according to them. Now in Britain, this formation of the nation state, it was not the result of a revolution that people they go about asking for change, there's a revolution, and all of a sudden a nation state is formed. It was not like that. So it was not a result of a sudden revolution or upheaval, but it was a result of a very long drawn out process. Means it really took a lot of time for the formation of United Kingdom. And they were, before 18th century, there was no British nation as such, and there were some islands and different ethnic people, they lived there. So we had English, Welsh, Scottish and Irish people. They were living in these islands. There was no British nation as such during that time. And now all these ethnic groups, they had their own culture, they had their own political traditions, the way of governing, own traditions, own culture. So all were different. They were living in separate islands. And but with time, the English nation, it grew more in power, and as it grew in power, in wealth and importance, so it started to assert its dominance over the rest of the islands also. That is what happens, that is what history tells us. If one gains power, wealth, importance, so they try to assert their influence over other nations also. The same thing happened here also, and so it was able to extend its influence over the other nations also. And the English Parliament, they took over power from the monarchy in 1688, and so now this was at the end of a protracted conflict. Now what it means is lasting for a long time. So this conflict with the monarchy, it went on for a long time, and at the end of it in 1688, they took part by force from the monarchy. And now through this, a nation state with England at the center, it came to be forged, or it came to be formed. Then the Act of Union between England and Scotland, it resulted in the formation of United Kingdom of Great Britain. So when Scotland was incorporated, then the United Kingdom of Great Britain was formed. And now what it basically meant, that the English, they have become so powerful that they can influence or dominate over the Scottish people. And so what happened, the British Parliament, now Scotland was a part of Britain, okay, now together. But because the British Parliament, they were more strong, the English, they were more strong, so what they did, they asserted their dominance also over the Scottish people. And so the Scottish culture, their traditions, their institutions, they were suppressed, and the Catholic people who were living in the Scottish mountain highlands, the mountain area, and so they had to suffer terrible repression. The English, they were Protestant. They were majority wise, they were more Protestants in England. But whereas the Scottish, they were the people who were living in the mountain area, they were more Catholic. So the Catholic people who lived in the Scottish Highlands mountain area, they had to suffer terrible repression. Whenever they tried to assert their independence, whenever they tried to get their independence, they were suppressed very ruthlessly, brutally. And the Scottish Highlanders, the people who lived in the Scottish mountains, they were even forbidden, they were not allowed to speak their own language. They spoke Gaelic, but they were not allowed to use that Gaelic language or even wear their national dress. Alright, so though it was a part of Great Britain now, but still they had their own identity. But because the English was so dominant that they basically tried to dominate over them and did not allow them to speak their language or to wear their national dress. And a large number of these people, they were forcibly driven out of their homeland when they did not want to do as they were told. So obviously they were driven out of their own homes. Now later on, Ireland also was incorporated, so it also suffered the same fate, the same destiny as Scotland. And now Ireland also was a country divided between Catholics and Protestants. Now though the Catholics were more, Protestants were less, but because English was mostly Protestant dominated, so they held the minority Protestants there. to establish their dominance over a largely Catholic country. So the Protestants were held so that they can suppress the Catholics there, and so there was a failed revolt by Wolfe Tone. Sometimes you are asked for a 1 mark questions and names like these small things, you don't, they sometimes somehow disappear from your side. So it can be asked, many times it has been asked for a 1 mark question, who was Wolfe Tone? And people don't know. Most of the students don't know who was Wolfe Tone. So you should know. Wolfe Tone, he was an Irish person, alright, and he led a revolt against the English. Okay, so failed revolt by Wolfe Tone and his United Irishmen in 1798, and later on Ireland also was forcibly incorporated or brought to be a part of United Kingdom in 1801, and so a new British nation, it was formed, and this was through the dominance of English culture, all things English. New symbols of, so the symbols of New Britain were the British flag, that is the Union Jack, national anthem, God Save Our Noble King, the English language, they were promoted, and all the other older nations, they were basically subordinate partners. They did not have much influence or much say in this new nation state of Great Britain which was formed. So that was the unification of Great Britain, and for today we will stop here. We will not proceed anymore.